Hello, guys and gals, me Mudahar, and I got the Best Buy Blue on when I'm at my happiest, and this is when Ubisoft is getting sued, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Ubisoft is one of those companies where, to be honest with you, I feel like they have no real understanding of what their community or the gamers actually really want. As of recently, they released this one game that you probably didn't hear of called Champions Tactic Grimoria Chronicles, which is this competitive multiplayer turn-based RPG. And if you're looking at just what gameplay they're showcasing, it's almost like this 3D tabletop Darkest Dungeon game brought forward. Now you might be like, whoa, Muda, why are you bringing up this one game? Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ubisoft's newest NFT game. Now, you might be like, well, why would something like this even need NFTs? But no, there are tons of NFT crypto people that immediately jump and flock and mint everything they can to get their starting characters and play a video game that quite literally doesn't even need the blockchain or Web3 or NFTs or anything crypto in order to function, right? You know, a lot of these like multiplayer live service games could easily be done on a server, and all of their, actual processing doesn't even need anything from the blockchain. So ladies and gentlemen, to give you an idea about it, how much do you think some of these NFTs are costing in a game that is deader than Elvis Presley? Well, apparently if you look at it, they've got 2,029 champions in the Champion Tactics marketplace, right? Now, I started to look at some of these prices, and you don't have to, go to an optometrist. This is one actual NFT is apparently, in some fucking cosmic way, worth $394 million and $92,888.88. Now, you might be wondering, whoa, how the hell could the Savage Trooper be worth that much? Well, what about the Balanced Flesh Reaper for $315,824,929? Now, look, I'm pretty sure that there are private jets, fucking yachts that you can, bunkers that you could purchase far cheaper than that, okay? You know, what convinces an actual crypto degenerate to think, man, maybe I'll buy the Savage Trooper or a house? NFT or a house? Now, if you're anybody that's buying some of these things, I think you have way too much money for anything, even the ones that are worth like $5,000, $4,000. If you buy this, you are actually brain dead. You are actually fucking medically brain dead is what I would consider, all right? Now, of course, ladies and gentlemen, per YouTube TOS, I wish I could escalate a little bit more of what I think of the people purchasing this, but we'll have to dial it back just a bit. So again, this one NFT thing that's worth it this much, obviously for a gaming company, they really love this kind of stuff because if you can skim like 5% of the purchase price of like thousands of dollars, you're making more money than you would ever selling just one microtransaction. Okay, this is the real, this is why companies go after NFT stuff. Remember, if you can siphon 5% off of a $760 purchase or a $1,000 purchase, you have actually made more money than you would have just with one actual microtransaction sale. So their whole idea is this shit just sells like crazy and they make money off of marketing trading activity. But anyways, to go beyond it, obviously this game hasn't been doing too well. There was one user by Paulstar111 that was apparently squad wiping every single person in the game. But apparently the developers were like, sorry guys, there's a matchmaking bug. Everyone can play normal now. You know, it's wild that like in most games, I wonder to myself, most multiplayer stuff that I play, it's probably not this buggy, but usually with NFT garbage and trash, that's when all the crappy development comes out. Anyways, though, the title of this video is Ubisoft is getting sued, and obviously I started this video off with that. Now, remember that game, The Crew? One of the main reasons that a YouTube beloved creator, Ross, had actually started a campaign on known as Stop Killing Games. An online game Ubisoft released that clearly can be played offline, completely lost to the ether because Ubisoft did not care about actually, preserving that fucking game, okay? I think games should be preserved. I think we should make sure that any game that comes out that you spend your money on should have some actual functionality. Now, obviously, if a game is sold like World of Warcraft, where you fucking know it's an MMO, you know the multiplayer is a strong component, you know from the get-go you're buying a license, you're buying a subscription to join the world of Azeroth. But when you're playing some of these live service, online-only required games that can clearly be played offline with AI, like The Crew, there needs to be better wording. So anyways, recently there's this big 38-page lawsuit that you can actually read through that actually goes and is filed by two individuals, Matthew and Alan, against Ubisoft Entertainment. It's a class action complaint where, again, they want to bring up the idea of owning your game. So when they say, imagine you buy a pinball machine, and years later, you go to your den to go play it, only to discover that all the paddles are missing. The pinball and puppets are gone. Tony Soprano came to your house, took everything from you, okay? Basically what they said was, turns out the pinball machine manufacturer, in this case Ubisoft, decides to come to your house and gut the insides of the pinball machine and remove your ability to play the game that you bought and thought you owned. Now, thought is a pretty important word over here. Again, as somebody that's been in this space for years, I kind of know what is a digital license, and that's just why I buy physical, because I know with a physical disc that contains all of the game data, no company can come and take that disc unless they break into my house and take the disc that way, okay? But that's a whole different story, okay? Anyways, this is obviously targeting people that are, the average casual gamer that probably purchases a game thinking, yeah, I'll be able to download this whenever, right? They don't really understand that they're purchasing a license. So anyways, even though you paid full price to receive this game, you never knew that the manufacturer would come in one day and without your control, leave you with a skeleton of what you thought you paid for. This is exactly what happened to thousands of Ubisoft customers, including plaintiffs Kaisel and Lou. I need to get better at pronouncing names. This decision resulted in defendants' complete destruction of the game, which totally barred consumers access to the product they paid money for, which is true. So to further rub salt on the wound, defendants decided that they would not provide consumers with the basic courtesy of leaving intact the single-player version of the game. So to give an idea, there was never any actual single-player version of the game. It wasn't as if you couldn't connect to the Ubisoft servers, the crew would say, all right, just play an offline version of it. There could have the potentiality to have offline play, but Ubisoft never officially patched it in to the original crew. And I still think they can patch it into the original crew. I still very much believe they can. It's just a matter of Ubisoft probably not doing it, whether it be because they're in active litigation, clearly, or it's because it would just look like some weird form of capitulation. Instead of making NFT games, can you just preserve the games that people paid full price and wanted to preserve? Like, is that too much to ask from a company as large as Ubisoft? Like, am I being a little too entitled when I say that? So what they said was defendants misled consumers by telling them that they were buying a game, when in fact all they were doing was renting a limited license. So it's because of this kind of stuff that there's been new laws that have been introduced. For instance, if you live in the state of California, one bill, number 2426, actually specifically covers this, where they state in section 1 that it shall be unlawful for a seller of a digital good to advertise or offer for sale a digital good to a purchaser with the terms buy or purchase, or any other term which a reasonable person would understand to confer an unrestricted ownership interest in the digital good, or alongside an option for a time-limited rental, unless either of the following occur. So basically, unless the seller receives at the time of each transaction an affirmative acknowledgement from the purchaser indicating all the following: that the purchaser is receiving a license to a digital good, and the complete list of restrictions and conditions of the license. The access to the digital good may be unilaterally revoked by the seller if they no longer hold a right to the digital good if applicable. And B, the seller provides the consumer before executing each transaction a clear and conspicuous statement that does both of the following. States in plain language that buying or purchasing the digital good is a license. So this is quite important, right? It's not what we wanted, but according to the state of California, what they did was basically put like a Surgeon General warning, kind of like when you buy cigarettes. It basically tells you, hey, bitch, you don't own this $60 purchase, okay? It's not yours. It can be taken away whenever. Now, generally speaking, right, like if you're the average gamer and you don't know about ownership and preserving your video games, you might actually think you can download it like 10 years later, provided you still remember the account, right? But now if you're being told that you don't actually own what you're buying, you're basically just renting it, that might actually affect how many people choose to go buy the digital copy or maybe buy a physical copy if they know that $60 is either, how they choose to spend the $60 means owning the game 10 years later or not. Now, according to the Crew's case, it didn't even matter if you owned the disk, because the servers, once they were disconnected, rendered the disks completely inoperable. So one of the things it said was, because this case is a class action where the aggregate claims of all members of the proposed class are in excess of $5 million, exclusive of interest and costs, there are over 100 members of the putative class and plaintiffs, as well as most members of the proposed class. So that's kind of how much money they're going for. And what they said over here was, in the past, home-use video game consoles emerged in the 70s. Initially, video game consoles stored a large, limited number of games directly on the hardware. Later, the development of the game cartridges and discs allowed you to interchange games with consoles. So down the road, you could buy Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation 1 and trade it around with your friends or use it on different systems. So in the 1990s, once you got general use internet, over time, developers used the internet to make MMOs, games like, World of Warcraft. The games used the internet as their platform, creating a space where individuals could play the games while socially interacting with one another. Today, every console has internet connectivity, and most games contain internet-based features. When players use the internet in games, they are using the internet hosted by the game company's servers, unlike in the past where users could continue playing old games if they continued using their old consoles. Players now have to rely on the company to continue hosting the game in order to continue having access. And in some cases, it's literally just a server that exists that could easily be locally processed, or, a patch could be delivered offline if these companies gave a flying fuck. Technically speaking, video games in single-player mode do not require an internet connection. However, since the Crew operated from a remote server, there was no offline option. To play, users required a permanent internet connection, even if they bought a physical copy of the game. And then they talk about things like dedicated servers and whatnot, and of course they talk about shutting down those servers. So look, for the people that are like, well, you should have seen the writing on the wall, I agree to an extent. But then they started to list some actual Reddit comments where people had said, I didn't realize I was only renting the game back when I gave them $60. If things like this continue, why should we be paying full price for games, especially if they are digital games? Make it make sense. Dude, this is what I've been saying for years, okay? But whenever I talk about physical media, there's like this weird pushback from the gaming industry or some influencers who are so fucking locked in digital gaming because it's like, well, Moody, you play on PC. You gotta download games anyways to begin with. Even on the PC, digital storefronts like GOG exist that allow you to purchase DRM-free versions of video games. So you can download games like Cyberpunk 2077 and never have to worry about connecting to a server. As long as you have an actual downloaded copy from GOG, you can put that on a hard drive, you can burn that to a Blu-ray, you can make your own damn physical media if you want it. Obviously, Steam is not the only player in town, but as somebody that occasionally will play on a console, I do like purchasing physical media because in that case, at least I own my actual video games. That's why you have lawsuits like this, because people end up buying video games that they think they actually own when in reality they don't. And it sucks even more when you're playing a video game that clearly can get an offline patch, but of course the company does not care. And then it's an even bigger kick in the dick when you find out the company is as wealthy as Ubisoft. For them, it shouldn't even be that big of a deal. So they start showing the boxes where in the boxes, they don't actually specify that the game could be shut down really at any moment, right? So when you actually look at certain aspects, like if you look at the back of this PlayStation box, you'll see like one player, you will see online play required. But again, if you look really closely, there shouldn't even be there should be a blurb that tells you, hey, at some point you're going to lose access. And unless you read this one line where it's like Ubisoft may cancel access to one or more specific online features upon a 30-day prior notice, published at thecrewgameubi.com. So yeah, this lawsuit, look, as much as I'm very much on their side, I'm going to give you the brass tacks for the situation here. I think that with the tiny blurbs that are on the packaging, Ubisoft may actually end up having a case and saying, yeah, we gave you guys ample warning, ample notice, whatever. And even though I don't agree with it, legally, I guess they may actually be in the right. But I think what this lawsuit does is allow people to have a serious discussion about the games that they own. You know, companies like Ubisoft are not the only, Ubisoft is not the only bad player in town. pretty much every modern publisher has like live service games that are pretty much on the chopping block within like a year or two or in the next couple of years. The moment these games stop making enough money or you're actually losing money just by having them operate, it's very easy for them to just call it quits and cut out any form of multiplayer or live service connectivity. And in some cases, just remove the game outright. And while, yes, there are some developers that'll go and push an offline patch because they understand that, hey, if you pay $60 for a game, you should be able to play it, right? Even if we're not there to support it. But that is, honestly, the exception and not really even the norm. In my opinion, it should be somewhat of a legal requirement for some of these games that clearly have offline functionalities to at least push an offline patch. And even if you don't want to, at least tell people very readily, apparently, as you buy a game, that this will die. This game will be gone. And just see how that actually affects sales when people start to see that level, that actual emergency blurb put up. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, Ubisoft is getting sued. And honestly, I really fucking hope for once this company gets a serious kick in the balls and actually fucking changes courses going forward. And I hope this actually affects the industry in some way where people are more conscious about what they own, before it's just too late. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Just like if you dislike it, I am out.